Morning. They say they would push emergency laws through Parliament to raise more than £7.5 billion a year. You just heard that from the Shadow Chancellor. Well, I'm joined now by Labour's Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and a very good morning to you. £7.5 billion a year. Really? Doesn't every party say that? The Chancellor just announced in the budget that he would save £5 billion. Haven't you just plucked a conveniently large figure from the air?
No, this is an ambitious and it's a stretching target, but we think it's right to do so because under the Conservatives, the gap between the amount of tax that should be being paid and that is being paid has been widening. It used to be closing, now it's widening again. We've got to narrow that gap. It is unfair. People should be paying their fair share. But we also set out a 10-point plan.
Well, everyone agrees with that, but £7.5 billion a year.
That's right, and we've set out a 10-point plan that will help deliver that, but we also want the Treasury to do more, we want the HMRC to do more. It does include getting rid of the non-dom status, it does include getting rid of some of the loopholes that hedge funds and others have been exploiting, Eurobonds,
contributed to the Labour Party.
Well, look, we want fair rules, and it is right to have fair rules, dealing with some of the issues that there have been around, self-employment that's not genuine, a whole series of different areas that we think it is right to take action in order to close those loopholes and have people paying their fair share.
Would it include deeds such as the deed that your leader and his brother used to deal with the inheritance of the family home?
Well, no, that's not right, and as you know, that Ed...
It's not right that it happened, or what?
As you know, Ed has paid all of the taxes he was, required to do.
What about those deeds of variation?
What it does is this 7.5 ambitious target says that all issues should be looked at by the Treasury as part of making sure that you can close that gap between what's being paid, what should be paid, and what is being paid, because that gap's been getting too wide. And, the fact that we've set out the practical things that the Conservatives have just refused to do, they've opposed these changes on non-doms, and I don't think it is fair that people who, just exploiting different rules, who are actually being
changes on non-doms, they proposed changes and did them of putting up the charge they pay.
I know, but they've refused to make our changes, which is to end the non-dom status, and which is, to allow people to continue to exploit these rules, where they can be British citizens, they can be resident in Britain, but still exploiting these rules, so they're not paying their fair share compared to everybody else. At a time when you've seen millions of families across the country really squeezed, at a time when the Tories put up VAT, we think it's right to have these fair rules that everybody should be doing their bit.
It's just the size of it, £7.5 billion a year. You'd think it was there, if it was there, any government would go for it. But you've spent the last week rubbishing the Conservatives when they talked about this £8 billion extra on the NHS. You've said they plucked that from the air. Haven't you done just the same here with this £7.5 billion?
No, we haven't, because we're not saying that this money is going to be used to fund a particular pledge that's unfunded. What the Tories are doing is they're making promises and they can't say where the money's going to come from. We're not doing that at all. We're saying this is our target and this is what the Treasury want the Treasury to deliver. And we want to be using some of that money to pay the deficit down because it's right to do so. But what the Tories are doing is just sort of saying, we've had in the last few days, was it £1 billion on volunteering, some of estimates saying, another £1 billion unfunded for train fares, some estimates saying, and then they're saying, another £8 billion that they're plucking out for the Simon Stevens plan. All of these times, 8 times George Osborne was asked this morning to say where that £8 billion was going to come from, and 8 times he could not answer.
We just need to know
really
where
important.
Labour stand on that £8 billion, because Ed Miliband is on the record as saying, when you announced the £2.5 billion extra for the NHS, that it was over and above the Conservative plans. Do we add the £2.5 billion to the £8 billion that the Conservatives have announced?
Well, our plans are over and above what the Tories would do.
So it's £10.5 billion.
Well, but it's not real what they're saying, is it? And nobody believes it, because they've set out plans that will mean steeper cuts in the next 3 years than we've had in the last 5 years. So deeper cuts to public spending as part of this really extreme approach.
But we know the NHS is ring-fenced and this extra £8 billion has been announced.
Yeah, but where was it going to come from? It's not real. I mean, this is just fantasy figures. From George Osborne, 8 times he was asked, 8 times he could not answer, because he doesn't know. He's making it up as he goes along, because the Tories are getting so panicked now. And it's a time when, the fact they've set out a really extreme approach.
So Labour's only talking about £2.5 billion extra. Well short of Simon Stevens' recommendations.
We're setting out exactly where we would find all the money. that we need. And every pledge that we're making sure that it's properly costed and fully funded. Now, we won't do the Tories' extreme cuts to public spending over the next 5 years. That's what George Osborne set out.
Talking about the NHS, which we know is protected. But you know, I mean,
leave
aside the Conservatives. What about Simon Stevens? Will you give him, maybe he's still there, the £8 billion?
Well, we'll make sure that the NHS has the money that it needs, and that's what we've always done. But, as you know, it was the Labour Party that brought in the National Health Service in the first place, and we also made sure that waiting times came down, that we had more doctors, more nurses when we were in government. So, of course, we'll make sure that the NHS has the money it needs, and part of the way we'll do that is by making sure that we'll have a mansion tax, we'll have practical measures that will raise £2.5 billion. We can say where the money's going to come from. The Tories can't, they're just making it up, which means no one will believe them. Or alternatively, you've got to figure they're just going to have to raise VAT because they can't say where the money's going to come from, and they have got steeper cuts in the next few years, not
All right,
better
I want
ones.
to turn to your specific patch now, which of course is immigration, and this mug, which you'll be very well aware of, which is causing some controversy within your party, isn't it? It just simply says controls on immigration, I'm voting Labour 7th of May, and it seems to be pretty hard to get your hands on, and it seems that some senior members of your party don't want to get their hands on it. The Shadow Business Secretary, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Diane Abbott said it's shameful. I mean, are you proud of that mug?
Well, we've got a whole series of different pledges, and all of them on the different mugs. And it's right that we should do so. Look, immigration's important for Britain, but it's got to be controlled and managed.
What about Chukwuemeka? He doesn't want to appear with it. You clearly are proud of it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a storm in a coffee cup, this one, and I think you're not going to sort of draw me into the whole debate about this. Look, the practical policies are that we want to make sure we have stronger border controls, and that means having 1,000 more border staff to actually do proper checks, to follow up on visas.
Well, those are already starting, aren't they?
No. They're not. They've not brought them in properly, these exit checks that they brought. They haven't actually brought them in at all because they made such a mess of the computer contract and so on. So what we actually need is proper entry and exit checks, but also 1,000 more border staff to do the job. We've said how that will be paid for, because we would raise some visa waiver charges in order to put that money in. We would also change the benefit rules so that people coming to Britain can't claim benefits from up until they've been here for more than 2 years.
Yeah, well, the Conservatives are saying today 4 years for in-work benefits, so, you know, that's already happening as well.
And, actually, except that it's not happening. What have they done in the last 5 years? They haven't dealt with it. And the thing that is different about our approach compared to any other party is we will deal with the exploitation by agencies, recruitment agencies and employers who are exploiting immigration to undercut wages and jobs. That makes the system unfair. You've got some recruitment agencies only recruiting from abroad. We would change the law, make exploitation a crime. And we recognise as well, look, if you have students coming to Britain for our universities, overseas students, they bring billions into Britain. So we shouldn't be trying to restrict the overseas university students at the same time as doing nothing about illegal immigration, which unfortunately is what the Conservatives have done.
I must get a last response from you on this plan announced by the Conservatives about increasing inheritance tax threshold, if it includes a property up to £1 million for a couple. Labour's response?
Well, they promised that before and they didn't deliver it, but I think it's the wrong priority. It won't affect 90% of estates, and they're talking about there's a £140,000 tax cut for properties that are worth around £2 million at a time when you've got families still losing their homes because of the bedroom tax, at a time when pensioners and families have had to pay more VAT. I think they've got the wrong priorities, and that's why ours is a plan to help everybody.
What about the existing threshold itself, £325,000? Has Labour got any plans to lower that?
Well, we've set out our plans. Every one of our plans, as we've discussed earlier, is being costed, and we're saying how we can pay for it. You know, you just get a whole long list of things from the Tories. And we have said we would take action around the top pension tax relief for the highest earners, but we would put that money into cutting tuition fees and having grants for students so that we can help the next generation get on. I think that's the right priority.
Shadow Home Secretary, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Yvette Cooper there. Now then, is the steam beginning to run out a little bit of the UKIP train? A poll by Opinion in The Observer this morning has given the party an 11% share, its lowest rating for almost 2 years. Well, I'm joined now from Hayward in Greater Manchester by the Deputy Leader of UKIP. He's Paul Nuttall. A very good morning to you, Mr Nuttall.
Morning.
What do you make of this? I'll just put that straight